ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. Praise be to Allah who has created the heavens and the earth and has made the darknesses and the light. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. Praise be to Allah who has revealed the book to his servant and has not left in it any flaws. الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير. Praise be to Allah, to whom belongs everything that's in the heavens and everything that's in the earth. And in the hereafter, praise is all His. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا دائما مباركا فيه لا نهاية له ملء السماوات وملء الأرض وملء ما بينهما وملء ما شئت من شيء بعد أهل الثناء والمجد أحق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين وصل على محمد في الآخرين وصل على محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم آمين. I bear witness there is no deity worthy of worship save Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was his final prophet and messenger. And I attest that Muhammad has indeed delivered the message. So it has reached me and you and billions others. And I attest that Muhammad has provided the example that we shall all aspire to emulate. And I ask Allah to shower countless blessings and salutations and salawat and barakat and taslim upon the Prophet ﷺ and his family and descendants and his companions and friends and everyone who has adhered to his sunnah and us here and every Muslim around the world. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm going to take you to a scene in history. So we're going to need your imagination. The year is 625. So, place these effects and filters accordingly. There's a mountain, and across from it, a plain field with a little bit of a rough valley in between. On the edge of the plain field, a group of men on their horses in battle gear. They look bruised up, but they have this, you can feel a posture of victory. And they're on top of their horses, they're looking towards the mountain, trying to make something out. Where they're looking, there's a crack in the mountain, tiny crack that allowed some room, maybe barely enough to fit a few men if they were to stand there. And that was exactly what was in the crack. A few men were taking refuge. They looked terrible. Very dusty and disheveled, bruised up and bloodied. They very sweaty. They also they felt terrible too. They looked like they felt the bitterness of defeat, the pain of losing. And they also had the fear for their lives. In the middle of the people, at the center of them, was this guy who appears special. The way he's actually the center of attention, both here and earlier in the day. We're talking about 3 p.m. at this point. And the guy at the center, he didn't look any better. He probably looked worse. He had his metal helmet digging into his head because he fell earlier and it crushed onto his head. Now the 2 rings on the side, they dug into his skin and he's bleeding on both sides. So maybe blood sticking on his beard. His lips, his mouth too. And blood now on his beard. The people across on the horses, their leader now yells, "Afikum Muhammad?" Is amongst you Muhammad? Nothing. No one said anything. The people in the crack of the mountain, they just need to survive today. And if there's anything they're tasked for all their life, is to protect the man at the center. Then the guy says again, "Afikum Abu Bakr?" No one says anything. "Afikum Umar?" And then what does he say? He says, "U'lu Hubal." May Hubal be exalted. Hubal, the god. Okay, how did we get here? I mean, 3 hours ago, at 12 p.m., the scene was very different. The Muslims, whose leadership now in the crack of the mountain, they were victorious. Those, the leadership, the guys in the crack of the mountain, trying to protect the Prophet ﷺ, were at the front of the army chasing the last bit of Quraysh, the last bit of the disbelievers as they were running away. What happened? You know what happened. Okay? I'm not talking about the events of Uhud per se, but we're talking about what we continue to learn and take home from it. Uhud happened in a week like this, in a month like this. So, you know what you're imagining? These events exactly 1,442 years ago. They were playing as like a day like this. They were just playing at this time. So at 12 p.m., the Muslims, they're chasing the last bit of mushrikeen. Now the mushrikeen, they're running away and leaving behind their things. And of course the Muslims now, they're grabbing, "Oh wow, that's a nice shield. Oh, look at this. Oh, dibs on that, I'm keeping this." The archers who were on the mountain protecting the backs of the Muslims saw this. It's done. Let's go down. The leader of the archers said, "No." The Prophet ﷺ said, "We don't go down. We wait. This is our post." They said, "What do you mean wait? Look at the people. I mean, it's done. Look, even the women, they're coming down the mountains, they're joining, they're going to the battlefield." Oh no, the Prophet ﷺ said specifically, "If you see us win, don't join us for ghanaim. And if you see us lose, don't join us to support us. Don't do nothing other than stay on this post and protect our backs." That's what the leader of the archers is saying to them. And they said, "Come on, man, don't be paranoid. Look, everything is done." And then most of them, they went down. Who sees this? At Quraysh, on Quraysh's end, Khalid ibn al-Walid, not Muslim at the time. He sees that's my opportunity. He takes a group with him, circles around the mountain, kills the little bit of archers who were left there to protect the Muslims, and now attack on the Muslims' back. Okay, the Muslims are now looking what's going on in the back. There's a lot of ruckus. People are being killed. They turn back. Now the mushrikeen, they see this, and they all turn back too against the Muslims, who are now sandwiched. You know the rest of the story. Okay, that's how now, like, a group of people, they just forgot about fighting whatever. Now it's all about just protecting the Prophet ﷺ, defending the Prophet ﷺ. They circled around him, literally not fighting, just letting their back take whatever is coming. And of course, all of Quraysh wants his head. So that's now 12:30 maybe, 12:30 to 1. That's what's happening. Ruckus, Muslims being sandwiched in the middle, being crushed from both sides. All of the mushrikeen aiming for the Prophet ﷺ. And waves of people crushing, grinding against each other. And grinding against the circles of Muslims around the Prophet ﷺ. Umara, who we'll talk about, was there. Subhanallah. And now, in the process, when the mushrikeen are coming to, like in waves to attack, the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ falls, and that's when the helmet crushes, squeezes his head now from both sides, and this lacerates or digs, the rings dig into his cheeks. It wasn't until Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah pulled it out with his teeth, because he didn't want to see the Prophet bleeding like this and just waiting until they got back and found the tool. No, this is not going to wait. He did this, pulled the ring, and with that 2 teeth. Pulled the other ring with that 2 teeth. SubhanAllah. Now, how do we even get to the spot by Uhud? Then let's go back 2 days. The Muslims, they're sitting in the Medina. They know the mushrikeen just marched on them. And they're probably a day or 2 away. The Prophet ﷺ thinks people estimated them to be about 3,000 people. That's more than 3 times our people if we were to put an army together. Let's be realistic. Let's fortify the Medina and stay, put maybe like a couple of lines of an army, but then funnel them, like block certain areas, funnel them into certain areas, and then we fight them in the Medina, where we know what to do. And the women will be on the rooftops, aiming and shooting, communicating, calling for help, so that they can fight without being subjected to direct impact. And then, of course, people started to push back, as you know. Again, I'm just looking at the parts that we were going to take lessons from. People pushed back. You guys remember, a year before that was Badr, when a group of Muslims defeated the mushrikeen. And that's where the mushrikeen had the grudge. They'd been preparing for 1 year for a payback. Okay? Now, a lot of the Muslims were not in the army of Badr. So they were saying to the Prophet, oh yeah, Prophet of Allah, we've been waiting for an opportunity. Let us go out to them. If we stay here, they're going to think we're weak, we're afraid of them. No, let's not do that. And then some other person said, oh, what if they attack the houses? And some other people said, what if they attack the crops? Prophet ﷺ said, okay, if that's what you want to march out to them, to Uhud. They said, yes. Okay, I'm going to go get ready then. Prophet ﷺ goes, puts on his shield, and he has a sword on, his battle gear. He comes out of his room. When he goes to get his battle gear, they look at each other. Maybe we pressured the Prophet ﷺ. Maybe we were pushy. Yeah, I think we did. Let's just ask him, just to go back to his plan. When he came out all outfitted and ready, they said to him, Ya Rasulullah, we know we pressured you and you know best. Let's go back to your plan. He said, no, we can't. As ما كان لنبي إذا لبس لأمته أن يخلعها حتى يحكم الله بينه وبين عدوه. If a prophet puts on battle gear, that's it. They're not taking it off until Allah decides between him and his enemy. And you think of that, I'll just make a real quick comment about this. I think it's because one of us wouldn't go to, like a regular person like you and me, wouldn't go to war unless it's like really the last resort. I mean, if you're going to war because someone was driving and cut you off and maybe made a hand gesture that you didn't appreciate much. Now, if you're going to war with this person, of course, if you change your mind, that's a good thing. But a prophet would not go to war except for something that needs to be judged. That's why he's saying, it's not, it's not I got ready for war, that's it, I'm going to battle until Allah decides. Now, fast forward to the time of the scene that we're talking about. Abu Sufyan, the leader, he says, "U'lu Hubal." May Hubal be exalted. The Prophet ﷺ says to the people around him in the crack, "Aren't you going to answer him?" They said, "What do we say?" He said, "Say, Allahu a'la wa ajal." So Abu Sufyan says, the mushrik, he says, "U'lu Hubal." The Muslimin, what do they say? Allahu a'la wa ajal. Allah is greater and more exalted than Hubal. Abu Sufyan says, "Lana al-Uzza wa la Uzza lakum." We have our goddess, Uzza. You guys don't have Uzza. As it's like, it's like a big deal. The Muslimin, what did they answer? Allahu mawlana wa la mawla lakum. Well, Allah, we got Allah, you don't. And then he says, Abu Sufyan says, "Yawmun bi yawmi Badr." This day is for the day of Badr. So we're even now. Umar al-Khattab yells, "We're not, lasna sawa'an. Qatlana fil jannati wa qatlakum fil nar." Our dead are in the Jannah, yours in the hellfire. Abu Sufyan was content with that, as he thought Muhammad was gone. He turned around and he walked. And this was not really the end of the day for the Muslims, because a lot of horror happened after when they came back and they saw the bodies, and the Prophet ﷺ saw the body of his uncle Hamza. I mean, the day was definitely like a very painful day for all Muslims, but especially maybe in the life of the Prophet, maybe it was the hardest day in his whole life. I'm sure it was painful for a reason. They learned from it, and we're going to take some lessons to go home with from this in the second khutbah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. Raise your hands and ask Allah for forgiveness. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأصلي وأسلم على محمد الصادق الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين اللهم آمين. If you guys remember in the life or the biography of Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, in the prime years of his life, he was enlisted, or he was being drafted to go to Vietnam. And what did he do? He refused. He said, "As a Muslim, I'm not taking part in a war, in an unjust war. I'm not doing that." They said, "You go to prison." He said, "That's fine. But I would not partake in injustice." And he went to prison for 3 years, in the prime years of his career. And he took that and not to go to Vietnam. Now, why am I talking about this? Now, when people hear this, especially the non-Muslims, this to them is a statement. Muhammad Ali is representative of Islam. because he's Muslim. So what he does, people take it as this is the position of Islam. Because he said, as a Muslim, I could not do this, this, and that. Now, why am I saying this? The event that caused the flip in the day of Uhud from a victory to total defeat. The direct cause was the archers leaving their post. Umar ibn Khattab says about having a post. He says, أنت على ثغر من ثغور الإسلام. أنت, he says to every one of us, أنت على ثغر من ثغور الإسلام. You are standing guard on a post around Islam. As if Islam is one unit and we're all on posts, on the edges. He says, فلا يؤتين الإسلام من قبلك. Do not let the enemy breach from your side. And that's all that you're responsible for. Don't let the enemy breach from your post, from your side. Now, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when these people protected him with their bodies, they were physically defending him. The Prophet ﷺ is gone, physically. But then his legacy is living in all of us. And if you appreciate yourself being Muslim and knowing the truth, it is to give or impart to what these people did that day. I mean, imagine if Prophet Muhammad had not survived that day, you wouldn't be sitting here, perhaps, right? So, if you want other people to receive this, the same message of guidance that you receive, then you want to defend the Prophet ﷺ, you want to defend his legacy. And let that continue on, like Muhammad Ali did. He's standing on a post because of his fame, because of his status. His post is different from each one of us, but each one of us still does have a post. And you are representing Islam whether you like it or not, whether you mean to or not. I heard a story once, a guy in a country in Europe, he's wearing something like we wear, like something, or I mean, you know, maybe a turban, maybe you know, he looks like he's Muslim and he looks it. So he goes, buys something. The guy gives him back too much money, okay? He sees it, he likes it, he walks away. A couple of steps, he's like, that's not right. And then he goes back to the guy, hey, you gave me too much back. The guy smiled and he said, thank you for that. He felt, okay, the reaction was weird. He didn't say, oh, sorry, oh, how much? Really, are you sure? He just smiled. So the Muslim asked him, were you just testing me? And he smiled, he said, thank you, sir, or whatever. The Muslim guy now is walking away and he said, my knees can't carry me anymore. He thought to himself, I was about to sell Islam, the whole of Islam, for some money. Wherever you go, whatever you do, it's not that you're like, oh, I'm ready now, I'll put the cap on. Okay, you guys watching, I'm Muslim. Doesn't happen this way, doesn't work this way. Wherever you are, you're representing Islam. Do not let the enemy breach from your side. Okay. Let's move on. Umara, one of the, like a great warrior at that day, although when she joined the camp, she meant to just help out, like be as a nurse. But then when she saw the battle, especially that flip, she took sword and she took a shield and she went in. And she was around the Prophet ﷺ. And I can't, for time, but there is documentation of the conversations between her and the Prophet during the battle. She's striking away, defending the Prophet ﷺ. And then he tells her like, you know, blessings. He gives blessings to her whole household and all. And then she asks him, Ya Rasulullah, can you make dua that I'll be, that us, me and my household will be your company in Jannah? He said, Allahumma ja'alhum rufaqa'i fil Jannah. He asked Allah to make them his company in Jannah. She said, from that point on, life was not the same. Nothing else mattered. Like nothing really mattered in life. Nothing mattered at all. Subhanallah. Now, Umara, when of course when she was done with the battle, the story goes that the Prophet ﷺ, when there was standing while they were wrapping her up with bandages and all until they were finished, and he made sure she'll be okay. And then when they went out to Hamra al-Asad, when he came back, he sent to make sure that she was okay. You know, he treated her like a friend. And in his original plan, if you remember, he had a part for the women to take part in fighting. This is to cast some light on how the Prophet ﷺ thought of women, or how he, because the other day, or it happens, like someone wants to learn about Islam, a non-Muslim. And of course they go on Google. And then they see all kinds of things. You know, the Prophet Muhammad was not good to women or something like this. So, you know, for a leader who led men, very few chances are there to see like how he treated women like this. So you see the example. You see in his plan, he was really counting on women to do something, to contribute to the battle. And the plan, of course, didn't go through because the people pushed back on it. They didn't want it. But that's what I'm saying, is how he appreciated women, and especially Umara. The conversations that he had with her. And he kept saying, "Man yutiqu man tutiqin, man yutiqu ma tutiqina ya Umara." Who has this resolve? Who has this strength? You're amazing. So he showed much appreciation to Umara. So that's a window of opportunity we see there for the Prophet ﷺ. Third point, and I'm coming to conclude here. Third point is the concept itself of the decision to stay or to come out. Let me ask you this. You're a leader of a team or organization. You have an idea A, and you know it's best. And then your team, almost majority of the team, they come to you, they say, we think B is best. Now you know A is best. What are you going to do? Most of your team, they say B is best. Right? It's like an interesting situation when you know you're right. But see what the Prophet ﷺ did? He said, if you all want that, I'll go with it. And now you think about it, I mean, there's no way to really check what would have happened had they stayed in Medina. Right? But it seemed to them that, that had we stayed in Medina would have been better for us. And obviously, but the point is that the Prophet ﷺ still used the concept of shura. You guys want this? I'll go with it. Okay? This is the third point, and I'll finish with the fourth point, inshallah. Abu Sufyan, you guys remember the guy leading the army of the bad guys, Quraysh? So the baddest of the bad guys, Abu Sufyan, the one who was taunting the Muslims, U'lu Hubal, and he's talking about Al-Uzza, and he's talking where we defeated you Muslims. Abu Sufyan later on accepted Islam and fought for the cause of Allah, fought for fi sabilillah when he was the enemy of Allah on that day. Okay? Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was the leader of the right flank, was the contributor, was the cause, was the one responsible for the Muslims' defeat that day, wasn't it? He was the one who circled around and caused most of the bloodshed. He came he became Muslim too. Subhanallah. And not only Muslim, he became known as Sayfullah al-Maslul, Allah's sword that's ever ready to go, ever ready. And then on the other flank, who was the leader? Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, the son of Abu Jahl, and one of the leaders of the army, also comes to Islam later. And a lot of people of this army. What is this? What is the message here? Even the worst enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, even the ones who wanted him dead so bad, the ones who tried to crush the Islam, all Islam together, even those guys, and even as they appeared to the Muslims that they were beyond repair, they actually came into the fold of Islam. And it's a message of hope. You know, you see the people around you, maybe someone in your family that you're worried about, you know, because they're not on the right path. And you think of them and you think, well, I mean, if Abu Sufyan, who was standing one day trying to get, you know, if he had known that the Prophet was still alive, he would have tried to get to him and finish him off. That guy, he became Muslim. Khalid ibn al-Walid, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, and a long list of the people in that army. So there's always a chance for someone to get back on the path, or maybe he is on, or she, on the path, but they have a certain, they struggle with something. And it's very easy to judge them, you know, because you're not struggling with that specific thing. But perhaps you're struggling with another thing, and it's not on the spot now. You see what I mean? The person on the spot, we all want to go on them. But we have our issues too. So keep that in mind. Anyone still has the chance to, you know, to get back on track or be on the path. And remember that you have a post. Remember that you have a post. Maybe you've figured out what it is, maybe not yet. But it is something that you would use, something in your leverage, your job, your money, your status, your power, your influence, your network, any of that. I ask Allah to make us stronger. I ask Allah to allow us to keep our posts so that Islam will not be breached from our posts. I ask Allah to let us benefit from what we learned and spoke about today. I ask Allah to rahmah and maghfirah for these martyrs on the day of Uhud and since. I ask Allah to bring relief to the people of Gaza and victory for the people who are fighting there and in Palestine and everywhere. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. I'll read some announcements before we stand up for prayer. Please pass the boxes down the rows. Okay, starting Saturday, Iqamah, the Fajr will be 5:30 and Isha 9:30. Okay, 5:30 and 9:30, inshallah. This is Saturday, which is tomorrow. So the calligraphy class, I'm sure you all heard about, so which is named Sacred Lines, an Introduction to Islamic Calligraphy. It's one-day workshop. We'll be in Natomas tomorrow, April 20th, and here on Sunday, the 21st, inshallah. This will be 10 to 4 p.m., 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Well, I'm sorry, it's sold out here in Roseville. There are still spots in Natomas. Okay, it's about the fundamentals of writing the elegant script of Arabic calligraphy. There will be no Friday night program tonight. Please join the THR Soul Sisters for our Eid One Dish celebration. Eid One Dish celebration on Tuesday, April 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Please bring a favorite dish to share. Roseville Tarbiyah Giving Back Group will hold their monthly feed next week, Saturday 27th in Roseville at 10 a.m. Bayt al-Mal meets this coming Tuesday in Roseville at 6:30 to discuss upcoming changes in the residential real estate market. Brother Shakib and experts in the field. Volunteers are needed. Well, forget about that, because the second shift. Okay. Brother Fayaz will be selling a naan kebab after all shifts. Care will be tabling too. And this brings us to the dua. Brother Aftab Javid, who provided us with iftar a couple of times in Ramadan, Jazakallah khair, is requesting dua for his wife Nusrat Javid, as she had been battling cancer, subhanAllah, and is currently having a hard time with the chemo treatments. Allahumma jalha easy. Allahumma, I ask Allah to make it easy, the treatments, and to make it healing for her. Allahumma ameen. And bring relief to this family. Allahumma ameen. Brother Sarmad Ibrahim is requesting dua for his wife, Sister Shada, in her difficult time after she lost her father last week. Subhanallah. I ask Allah rahmah and maghfirah for the father, and sabr and tasheel for the daughter. She is suffering medical issues while traveling to the Middle East. Yeah, I ask Allah to return her back safely and give her sabr. Allahumma ameen. An anonymous sister is requesting dua for Allah to grant her sabr and ease. I ask Allah sabr and ease for this sister and the best. Sisters Amal and Fida are requesting dua for their father, who has been in the hospital for weeks now with no answers or diagnosis. Subhanallah. I ask Allah to make it khair. Allahumma ameen. An anonymous sister is requesting dua for her health, as she has 2 young children. I ask Allah good health for her and her children. The father-in-law of Dr. Athar Tariq, the father of Brother Manzar Qayyum, and the father-in-law of Brother Maqsood Ali, Chowdhury Nazar Muhammad, passed away last weekend in Pakistan. I ask Allah rahman maghfirah for him and for all the Muslims deceased, and I ask Allah healing and shifa for all Muslim sick around the world. Allahumma ameen. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه على نعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأنت يا أخي أقم الصلاة